Welcome to Outside the Frame, a podcast for wedding industry professionals to learn how to be better humans in business and life.
We're your hosts,
Caitlin of Skywater Photo and Film,
and Kaylin of Wandering Wildflower Films. We're here to create a supportive and meaningful space for diverse voices to discuss social and personal issues that impact wedding pros.
Our hope is that collectively, we can bring more of ourselves and the things that matter to the forefront of our work in the wedding industry and give all of us the courage to focus our business around who we are and what we care about.
We're so glad you're joining us. Thanks for tuning in.
Well, thanks for joining, everybody. We're so excited to have you back. Today, we're talking to Meg Cooper. Meg Cooper is an adventure elopement photographer based in Northern California, finishing her 7th year in business. After launching in 2019 with traditional weddings, Meg has evolved her business to exclusively focus on what she calls intentional, unhurried celebrations, designing and photographing full and multi-day elopement experiences for couples who already know they want to elope. Living with ADHD and managing depression means she leads her clients with empathy and compassion. From the first consultation where she's protecting a couple's dreams, all the way through to their wedding day when she's helping them stay present, her couples consistently describe her as an incredible human, not just a service provider. Meg's work centers on helping couples see beyond conventional timeline constraints to create celebrations where their stories can unfold naturally, and her focus on sustainable business practices and authentic client relationships has made her a trusted voice among industry colleagues navigating similar challenges. Welcome to the podcast, Meg.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And we'd love to hear a little bit more about how you even got started in the industry. Like, was photography always a big dream of yours?
Yeah, I dreamed of being a photographer in high school. I went to an art school. For high school, it was like a joined standard high school and an art school. So I got a little bit of both arts experience and standard high school curriculum. And so I was really involved in photography back then. And I dreamed of being a photographer through those high school years, but I only thought of Ansel Adams and Andy Leibovitz and similar people as like the model to be a photographer. Like, that's how you be a photographer. And I'm like, I don't know how to get from here to there. So I'm not going to be a photographer. So I went on and I did a whole other life plan, and I went to school for psychology and had a whole other like corporate life envisioned for myself. And then years and years later, I discovered through a friend of a friend her wedding photography Instagram account. She was in San Francisco at the time. And I can so clearly remember that moment because it was just like a lightning bolt of a before and after in my life of like before I discovered her account and after I discovered her account. Because as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, somebody is doing it in a way that feels approachable. I'd already gotten into like Instagram marketing. I was like trying to figure out how to be a digital nomad and do digital marketing of some kind. So I already knew like the deal with with online marketing. And so to see her Instagram feed, I was like, oh my God, I could do this. And so that just was the snowball in 2017. And then the following year, I really started building my business. I did a lot of portfolio shoots. I built my website. I spent thousands of hours in Facebook groups learning from experienced people about what to do and not to do. In January of 2019, I booked my first wedding. So here we are.
So exciting.
Yeah, it really was.
I feel like it's just more evidence of like, if you see it, you can believe it kind of an idea of like, if someone else is doing it, you're like, oh, yep. I can do that too.
Yeah, exactly. I had not seen it before, except for what you see in a gallery. Like, I thought to be a photographer was to put your work in galleries. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that. Like that, it felt like as far as if I wanted to go and be an astronaut, which I don't have any desire to be, but it was like, it felt that far away, like going to the moon. So yeah, 100%, once you see someone do it, you're like, oh, I could do it.
Yeah. And it sounds like you started in traditional weddings. How did you kind of shift that focus from more traditional weddings to the elopements and smaller celebrations?
From the very beginning, elopements were what I planned to do. Like, I am living the dream that I had in 2018. Like, I found adventure elopements. And so I knew from the very beginning, this is what I wanted to do. But I knew really quickly that it would be a lot easier to start with traditional weddings because I'm like, how do I even begin to find somebody who wants to elope? It was so much easier. It was very smart instincts, if I do say so myself, to get into traditional weddings because I knew I could second shoot for people. I knew that there was just a much bigger market for traditional weddings, especially where I live in Sonoma County in Northern California. A ton of people are here for weddings. And so I started with traditional weddings just to build a portfolio, to get experience, with the vision being in a couple of years, I would slowly transition out of weddings and into elopements. And that was what I did. I photographed my first elopement fall of 2020. And then I did a couple in 2021. And every year following that, it was like 100% weddings, 0 elopements, and then like 80% weddings, 20% elopements, and 50-50, and then 20-80 the other way. So yeah, that was how I got started. And now I'm exclusively photographing intimate weddings and elopements.
I love that you had like your dream. You're like, this is what I want. And then you were like, okay, but I know I can't get there right away. So I'm going to do these other things first. Like, that's so genius.
Thank you.
But you
Yeah.
manifested it.
I don't know. I mean, maybe.
Yeah,
I worked
you brought
really
it to
hard
life.
toward it.
Yes. I don't mean in the strictly magical sense. Like I think that there is a
Yes.
lot of talk about, oh, well, like I had this
Not heard
dream
about
and it
enough
came
about it.
true, right?
Yeah.
But no, like you really like worked for it. And I
Yeah.
think that that's admirable.
Yes, you are right in that way of like I had the vision and I like kept that as my North Star and compass. And I was just like going off track and then like staying the course. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been really, watching you kind of grow over the last few years. We kind of connected over
That amazing
a
elopement.
client, yes, an amazing elopement in Lake Tahoe that Meg associate shot with me while I was on video, and that was just so fun. That was one that like I had been dreaming of for a really long time, having lived in Reno for grad school, and so Lake Tahoe has like a very special place in my heart, and so it was really cool to be able to connect with you then. And since then, I just feel like I keep seeing you, yeah, being very open and honest about your journey, your mental health, your diagnosis. And I would love to hear a little bit more about how all of that has kind of come into play. Like, just tell us about what were some of the things that you noticed about yourself over time, and what was it like getting diagnosed in your 30s?
Yeah. Okay. There's a lot there.
There's a lot to unpack there. I know. We have lots of time.
Where we're going to kind of talk in this conversation is like kind of pulling a thread out of the middle of the story, but I have some life experience that goes back even before the last couple of years that kind of like was the background noise to this. But spring 2023, I had been feeling just like on and off, just really struggling. I mean, this was pre-diagnosis for both ADHD and depression. And I'd already been in therapy for like a year and a half, like 2 year and a half previously to that. So I had experience in and out of therapy a couple of times in my life, but at the time I was not currently in it. And there was this one Wednesday afternoon, another random vivid memory I have. This Wednesday afternoon, it was like 2 p.m. And I just remember falling on the couch, not like fainting, but like just like dropping onto the couch and sobbing. And I remember not knowing why. I was like, I don't understand what I'm crying about right now. There's literally nothing in the immediate moment to make me this upset. I don't understand why. I had this overwhelming feeling of not being able to motivate to do anything. Nothing sounded appealing. I was just like so despondent. And after I sat there a little bit and I was just kind of like noticing these thoughts in my mind, there was one thought that came to me that was, is this high functioning depression? Like, could this be depression? Like I had never associated myself with that word. The narrative I carried was, I'm not someone who's depressed. I can't be depressed. I have a functioning life. I pay the bills. I show up. I like have a great partner. My marriage is awesome. Like I have like I show up and do my life. Like I can't be depressed. Depressed people are people who like can't get out of bed. I had a certain image of what it meant to be depressed. And so the narrative was, I'm not someone who has depression. I can't be depressed. And so for me to have that thought of like, is this depression? Like, so I sat on the couch that day and I literally Googled high functioning depression. And so that was what started the snowball into the last 2.5 years of mental health treatment. I reconnected pretty immediately that month with the therapist I had already been seeing a couple of years previously. She's amazing. And that just started the whole journey. And 2 months later, I was going over like unpacking a lot of stuff with her, unpacking a lot of stuff from my childhood, from adolescence, and a lot of stuff that had kind of like fed into the narratives that I was still holding about myself. And at one point that early summer, we went over the diagnostic criteria, and lo and behold, it's like checks the boxes for moderate depression. So that was how depression came to be. And then it was just a matter of trying to live alongside it, alongside some really crazy family stuff, some like regular interpersonal drama and some family medical emergencies that were pretty wild. That was all happening at the same time, as well as being a full-time entrepreneur and like trying to balance work. And then the following spring in 2024, like actually that winter, I had started to actually think seriously about potentially an ADHD diagnosis. I had a couple of close friends in the industry who I knew both had ADHD, and we had been in a group chat for years, and we had kind of talked casually about what our life experiences were. And we had all kind of said enough that I was like, there might be something here. And so I started a Word doc of like everything I could think of that I saw in myself that I knew to be true on like alongside an ADHD diagnosis and symptom spectrum. And that spring, I finally set up a meeting dedicated with my therapist, like outside of our weekly sessions, to have a meeting with her to go over all the diagnostic criteria, like legitimately, of like, let's like stop dancing around this. Like, let's actually like look at this seriously and have a full conversation about it. And she has ADHD herself, and she has a PhD in ADHD. So she knows what she's talking about, and was like, you meet the criteria here. Like, I see it. And she had asked over the years, like, hinted at the kind of stuff, and I just downplayed it because again, the thought was like ADHD was never on my radar. It was, as I said to her last year, I was like, that was not on my life bingo card. Anyway, so yeah, she affirmed for me that I like met all the criteria going back to childhood, and I had like stories from my mom that corroborated a lot of it, along with my own experiences. And I get out of that meeting and I go to the next room next door, my husband's office, and I tell him the news, and he just looks at me and says, "Should I be surprised?" And I was like, I can't believe you are not surprised, because I'm floored.
Yeah, what were some of those things? Because I know, at least having done some of my own research, I don't quite fall fully like on that spectrum for ADHD, but there are, some tendencies. And so I
Mhm.
know that for everybody out there that also might be kind of going through some of the same things, isn't it also true that like a lot more women now are getting diagnosed later in life
Ah,
because most of the initial studies were done on boys, adolescent
yes.
boys?
Yeah, there's
And
still a
so what were
huge
some of
gap
the
in the
things that were kind
research.
of like really eye-opening for you that were, again, like, if you're saying that was like a specific term, just like depression, that you were like, I didn't quite associate myself with, what were some of the kind of like things that you noticed or things that you discovered?
I should have brought with me my whole document of notes.
A little
Off
pamphlet.
the off the top of my head, some of the things that I struggle with the most are procrastination. That has been a lifelong struggle with me. I talked with my mom around the time of the diagnosis, and I remember that happening at the time, but it was also helpful to like have her, obviously, like a parent or guardian or adult figure from childhood needs to corroborate stuff to qualify for a diagnosis. And so I was talking with her about it, and she was just describing how in sixth grade, she's like, I didn't know what to do with you. I couldn't get you to do anything. And I was like, I know, I was struggling so deeply at just like hitting a wall. I think of, so what happens a lot of times for people is that they get through middle school, they get through high school because they're living at home, they have the support of their parents, they like have everything taken care of, and then they get to college and they go away and everything falls apart because they are left to their own devices, and they have to figure out for themselves how to hold themselves accountable, how to get their stuff done, how all the stuff. And that's when a lot of people like really fall into like the abyss of ADHD symptoms. And for me, I had that experience kind of in middle school instead, where it's like I breezed through elementary school, and middle school, it just like hit a wall and just didn't recover. So to say like procrastination is at the very top, like deeply, like to a saboteur level of procrastination. Everyone has procrastination. That's the thing too about ADHD. Everyone's like, well, doesn't everyone have a little bit of it? And yes, we all like, Caitlin, like you're saying, yeah, it is a
Mhm.
spectrum. There's actually a new theory circulating in the psychology community that's called VAST. It stands for Variable Attention Stimulus Trait. My therapist taught me that. ADHD is kind of like you either have it or you don't. There's a line in the sand, and you either meet the criteria or you don't. And so the people who don't, like you're describing, like you see tendencies in yourself, like you don't qualify for it fully, but you still see more than average the other people. Like that's where VAST comes in, as to kind of like the like with ASD, like that is a spectrum as well.
Mhm.
Like people can be really high functioning with autism and live independent lives. And there's also a very other end of the spectrum, but ADHD is kind of that way too with fast. So yeah, in addition to procrastination, what I struggle with most in like my day-to-day work life is task initiation, lack of prioritization. My brain just does not know what to prioritize because everything sounds fun, everything sounds exciting. I could brainstorm for 2 hours and come up with like 10 pages of projects and ideas and sit there for another hour, unable to start because I'm like, I don't know what to start. Like all of this is important. How do I choose? So like prioritizing what to start, actually getting started on tasks that I struggled with so hard for a long time. Getting on the right medication, which I'm sure we'll touch on this year, has really helped put a dent in that. Task follow through also is something that I've struggled with for a long time. That is a classic ADHD symptom of like getting something through 90% to completion and you get all the hard stuff done and you get like over the main hurdles. And then the very end, it's just like a couple of small details that trip you up that and you just like the project sits unfinished. Those are a couple things off the top of my head that I struggle with the most. It definitely shows up in other areas of life. Emotional regulation is a piece of ADHD that I didn't know about until when I started like looking into symptoms and official criteria. Working memory problems is a thing. Like I'm struggling to, I know all this stuff like the back of my hand because I am an Enneagram type 5 and I spend like literally my free time reading research studies. So I know all this like the back of my hand, but working memory is just left the chat right now. So I can't think of anything more, but those are some of the highlights.
And I think it's so important that they are looking at it deeper now because yeah, it is so focused on the boys and doing that. And then like now they're looking at it as a spectrum, it just fits so much better, just like autism, where it's like there's not just one size fits all. It just doesn't work that way. And obviously it shows differently in you than it might in somebody else. I am curious, Meg, has there been any change in the way that either you see yourself or the way that you live your life now that you've been officially diagnosed?
Yeah, there have been a lot of changes, even just understanding, like even without taking any action. I just had this conversation with a friend a couple of weeks ago. Even without taking any action in terms of like treatment and symptom management, just the awareness of what is actually going on has made a huge difference because for my whole life, it was like the narrative was, I don't know why I can't get it together. I just must be lazy. I'm unmotivated. It's just like I was a high functioning person in all these other areas of my life. And people close to me would describe me as a go-getter and determined and confident. And I'm like, I feel like a freaking shit show in my mind. Like I can't get it together. Like I'm yeah, just unmotivated and lazy. And I don't know what's wrong with me. Something must be wrong with me if I can't just like stick with something and get it done. Like I know what I need to do. Why can't I just do it? I said that to my therapist one day. She's like, that's the crux of ADHD. Like, you know what you need to do. You just can't do it. Just the self-awareness of like, oh, okay. It's not just a moral failing on my part. It's not just a lack of willpower. It's not just like some character flaw in myself. That's what I thought it was, like a character flaw. It was like other people are just way more productive than me. Other people are way smarter about how to get stuff done and hold, like I'm just not disciplined enough. Like that was another thought. I'm not disciplined enough. So it's not just a moral character flaw. That was a big piece of just like the self-awareness. I can't remember if I answered your entire question.
No, I mean, it is. It's like it's the false narratives that we tell ourselves, right? We're like,
yeah.
oh, this is really what's the truth. But when we dig deep and we understand truly who we are, what we're dealing with, then it gives us a better answer. And then we can have a path forward, right? Like once you know what's going on, now, okay, I have steps. I have things I can do to make it better.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Just knowing what was going on.
Yeah. How has that impacted your business, being a photographer and entrepreneur?
A lot, I would say. The same, likewise, in other areas of my personal life too, of like how I show up interpersonally, with friends, with my husband. It's affected everything because now I can know what's going on. Be like, okay, not only do I know what's going on, but I am like along the way, I learned skills through group coaching, through my therapy, through books, and could actually be like, okay, so typical, like neurotypical strategies are like, there's a reason that they haven't worked this whole time. And so starting to put into practice the actual tactics that do work for my brain, that over time has made a really big difference. It's hard to even, you asked how it has made it different. I'm like, it's an endless, I'm not even sure how to quantify it. Honestly, it has just like, it is such a multifaceted thing where it's like hit one domino and the rest of the dominoes like started to tip. I speak to myself so much differently. I've had a couple of conversations with my mom this past summer and just talking about like how even a couple of years ago, thinking back to that April 2023 day, that like pre-diagnosis, pre-treatment, even 2 years ago, like I am such a different person. I speak to myself so much differently. I have so much more empathy for other people. And I actually know how to, not only do I deserve that I like, not only do I believe that I deserve empathy and compassion, which I did not before that spring. I remember having a lot of conversations with my therapist to be like, what do you mean we have to talk about self-compassion? Like, no, thank you. I'll pass. Like, I don't need any of that. Like, I just need more discipline. But not only believing that I actually deserve to be spoken kindly to myself, but actually know how to do that rather than defaulting to the natural critic and all of those old narratives. But that alone, like, has filtered down into so many aspects of work and life and entrepreneurship, of just being able to talk to myself nicely and understand what's going on.
Well, and in past groups, yeah, you've kind of touched on not just like how much like growth you've had over time, but like when you were still, prior to getting, diagnosed and having this like self-awareness, like the negative impacts that like it had, like, and like the big difference that you've had like since
Yes.
then. Yeah, I don't know if you want to touch on a little bit about, kind of like what that felt like and like I can't remember what your exact words were, but like, the guilt or like feeling like you
Mhm.
weren't, you're missing out on opportunities, from like a work
Yes.
standpoint. Yeah. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
There was a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. Shame is definitely like the pervasive emotion that comes to mind when I think about the early years of 2019, even I mean, kind of 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. There was a lot of shame involved in my mind because, again, through the lens of thinking that this is just a moral failing, and then like all of the symptoms that would trip me up of not being able to follow through on projects, not being able to start, that manifested in years of underperforming in so many areas of my business, most notably marketing. Or like, for years, I didn't publish any blogs. I had so many resources at my disposal. I like knew as much about it as the next person did. I had taken multiple courses. I had all of the resources at my disposal. I had all of the software, everything, all of the content, all of the ideas. I just couldn't start because it just was like so mentally painful to sit down and actually start a blog post that I just for years I had that struggle. Like, I need to be doing it. I know I should be doing it, but I can't be doing it. Like, I just had this full body reaction of just like, it felt like kind of navigating through molasses. Like, that was the amount of resistance that I was feeling on a daily basis in these little tiny tasks that are integral to being an entrepreneur. And so when you compound that over a span of years, it led to, yeah, a lot of underperforming. And that resulted in a lot of underachievement in revenue. There were many years, like people talk about like hitting six figures in their first like 6 months. That was like, how are people doing that in their first year, in their first 2 years? And it was like, I'm still not anywhere close to that. The last 2 years have been like really solid for me in terms of revenue, but not anywhere close to 100,000. And here I am 7 years in. So yeah, the opportunities and just like the underperforming was so crazy. And I attributed it all to just like, I'm not working hard enough. I am not disciplined enough. There must be something wrong with me. I don't understand why I can't just do this thing, why this is so hard. And it's so different now. Like, I can actually, like, now that I know what's going on and I have the skills to be like, I have the accessibility to put skills into practice. It's no longer a struggle. Like, I, I could go on a whole tangent. Over the weekend, I spent like 4 hours building out a huge 6 month off-season project plan involving a couple of different projects, including Pinterest, which I have never done because that's a huge thing. I'm like, that feels like a beast and I don't know where to start. So I'm just not going to. And today is day 3 of implementing that plan. And I'm like actually doing stuff. And so it's like, I feel confident about like actually getting started every day and doing like the day-to-day things. And I know that I will be able to actually follow through in month 1, month 2, month 3, because I can put all of the skills to use that I have at my disposal now that I did not have in the early years. So yeah, there was a lot of missed opportunities along the way in terms of results, in terms of satisfaction, achievement.
Yeah, and a lot of that sounds maybe more like behind the scenes, more for like, the way that you see yourself. Do you feel like there were any moments where that kind of like impacted your couple's day or like, the work that they were receiving, or was that really more just like, no, this is a lot of self-talk?
No, I was still showing up for couples really well. And I didn't no, I would say that no, those didn't cross.
Cool.
Where I was still delivering a five-star white glove experience to them. Like I've had couples, like my very first couple, I booked in January 2019. I photographed their wedding in November of that year, and they were so awesome. I have a questionnaire besides my like feedback and review form that I send to select like ideal clients. That's like even more in depth. That's kind of like getting to understand even more of like the ICA piece. And there was a question in that form that said, knowing what you do now, would you have paid more for me? And they said yes. So like from the very beginning, like,
Ooh,
client, I appreciate that.
that's amazing. No, that's a great
Thank you.
feedback to get from somebody.
Yeah. So from the very beginning, like client experience has been so important to me because I know that without that, there is nothing else. So it was always just behind the scenes stuff in terms of like my day to day, actually obtaining those clients. Like once I got the clients, I knew what to do. I was acing my calls. I was like nailing the client experience photos. Like it was just a matter of all the marketing and all the behind the scenes prep and managing.
I mean, I totally feel that. I feel like that's something I struggle with because it's the stuff people aren't seeing, right? It's like, oh, well, I'm dealing with my clients, I'm doing the things that are right now,
Yep.
but it's like
Yep.
those little things you're like, but I also need to be doing these other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you talk to your couples at all about, the mental health that your depression, ADHD, anything like that? Do you talk to your couples about that?
Not a lot. I used to bring it up in consult calls as a kind of way to kind of like deflect any negative conceptions they might have about me. I kind of like say it as a
Mm.
I said it for a while. I have stopped doing it. For a while I said it at the top as kind of like a disclaimer. Like I'm going to be talking really fast. I naturally speak at like 1.5 speed. So if you need me to slow down, I can. I will go off on tangents. That's just my brain getting really excited. I would kind of just like, yeah, offer a disclaimer at the top of so that they could, yeah, I felt like my energy was scaring people off for a long time. I don't think that it actually was, but that was the narrative in my mind of like, I'm just being really crazy right now and over energetic. But after a couple of months of that, I stopped doing it because I realized I didn't need to preventatively apologize for the way that I was showing up. And it hasn't been an issue. Like people are like, you're great. I love like people consistently say on calls or after calls, I love the energy that you brought. Like that's something that couples who end up booking me say a lot. Like we love the energy you brought to the call. So it was not really relevant in terms of like during their booking process, like through to their wedding day. Sometimes I will mention it, but it's usually it's usually the exception to the rule with very select couples who I develop as above average closeness of a relationship with, who like we might connect on certain things and I'll hear a little bit about their life experiences and then I'll chime in and be like, I so understand what you're going through. Like I have been through similar things. Yeah. So I don't just usually, it's not because I'm afraid to disclose it. It just doesn't really feel relevant, except for again, like those couple of instances. But that's not to say that I don't still show up with the grace and empathy and compassion that is kind of a byproduct of all this because I do. Like I still lead with a lot of emotional intelligence. So like that kind of says everything that it needs to say without actually like saying those terms specifically because they at the end of the day they don't really matter.
Yeah, you're still showing up for your clients and you're still showing them the love and the respect and the compassion that you give yourself now. Do you think that that's changed since you have been diagnosed? Like, have you seen a shift from pre-diagnosis to post-diagnosis of how you show up on your wedding days, how you talk to your clients?
Nothing specifically that comes to mind. I think only because it was such a slow burn. I mean, we're condensing a multiple years into a very small conversation here.
Yes.
And obviously for the sake of time, we couldn't, I mean, yeah, we couldn't do
It would
anything
take
else,
days.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I know. How much time do we have? Um, but it felt much more like a slow burn. And it was like something that I was kind of like grappling with behind the scenes, both in work and in my personal life on a daily basis. I was journaling a lot and just kind of like dealing with the impact. I almost said fallout. I mean, there is some fallout to a degree, but it's more of the impact that all of this has had on my life. I was kind of processing all of that on a daily basis for a really long time, that it was not like a flip of a switch where it's like I wasn't acting like this way before, and then afterwards I was, because it was much grayer. It was like the gray area between the black and white was really deep and long. So yeah, it didn't, I feel like it's always been like this. I mean, that's also part of like who I naturally am, even before all of um, this like mental health treatment and journey and diagnoses. Like that has really just amplified the traits that I naturally have within myself of being a supportive, inclusive human who is kind. Like those traits are inherently part of me that have always been there for my whole life. But in the last couple of years, they've just been amplified even more. So that's my really long-winded answer.
No, I think that was great. Like I think it's just it goes to show that yeah, it's not like you can yeah, go from being somebody who's struggling to just like nope, I'm like fixed overnight just
Oh
because I
yeah.
know this one
Yep.
new thing about myself, right? It is a constant process of growth and inner reflection. And yeah, you've kind of like hinted at like all these different things, but yeah, so like what are the key things that did help make that change? Obviously, you mentioned going to therapy, the diagnosis itself,
Yeah.
uh, journaling. Like, what were all like the key things that really, even today, like that have kind of medications? Like, what were the things that have kind of had that impact since
Yeah.
then?
You touched, you nailed
Yeah,
most of it.
sorry.
Getting close.
Yeah.
A lot of that. I'll recap those, including the ones you mentioned. Therapy for sure. Like everything starts with that of just, I mean, especially for coming back to what you said earlier about how women are like, there's record numbers of women being diagnosed, and that's not on accident. And people are like, it's just more prevalent. Like everyone has ADHD now. It's like, no, we had it the whole time. We just weren't caught, because even still now, like there's a huge gap in the research in terms of girls and boys. And the same is true for autism. It's very like a lot of neurodivergence. There's a huge gap in research in childhood age studies. So there is a really big impact on somebody's mind when you spend decades going through life thinking one thing about yourself, and then come to find out that it's like there's a whole paradigm shift involved. So going to therapy and spending a lot of time processing all the like fallout of that actually, and the impact of all of those pieces, that's really important, not only for myself but for everyone. Medication, like you said, that has made a huge difference. That's another narrative piece that I've had to work through myself. Of I had a certain idea of what it meant to be seeking psychiatric care with medication for a mental health disorder, where yeah, I had certain ideas about what that meant. And I didn't think that I don't know. I don't even have like specific words. It was just kind of like a general disdain, like, ugh. There wasn't like a specific narrative like with the depression, but I did have certain feelings that I kind of had to get over, and recognize that this is the same as if I had any other medical issue. Like I used to have
Mhm.
hyperthyroidism. So I took hormone replacement for my thyroid for like almost a decade, or like diabetes is another example that people use, or high cholesterol. Like those are all standard run of the mill medical issues that people face on a daily basis. And seeking medication and taking medication for mental health disorders is the same thing. Like it's still part of your body. Getting that dialed, which does often involve a lot of patience, but it was worth it at the end. It took me almost a year to find the right medication. Some people hit it off right off the bat. The first medication they try is what solved the problem, or the second one. I went through six before, or technically five. The sixth
Ooh.
medication is what worked for me. But this year, it satisfies, like I don't actually have OCD, but like that like small part of my brain, like it satisfies me that it happened in January, so I can have a very clean delineation. Unlike the rest of the years where it was like June and April and
Yep.
whatever. But having that happen in January of this year just created such a strong contrast from this year and compared to the last 2 to 3, where it was worth the patience to get through all of those long months of trial and error and different dosages and different medications, because the one that I finally landed on has made me actually feel like I'm living a normal life. I just had a meeting with my psychiatrist 2 weeks ago. She's like, yeah, this is what life is supposed to feel like. Like, like this is how it's supposed to be. I'm like, wow. It may not be for everyone, and not everyone has a tolerance to different compounds, but for those it does work for. It can really be a game changer. Besides that, a lot of self-education of learning through books and through a lot of articles and research studies like one does at 9 p.m. on the weekdays. And group coaching has been the other thing that has really made a huge impact on me. I was on an email list from Kristen Carter. I'm going to throw out a plug for her. She has a amazing podcast called I Have ADHD. And I was on her email list like in early 2024. And the marketer in me is so mad. I didn't keep this email. I just very impulsively threw it away. But there was one email I read from her that sprang right after my diagnosis. And I was like, oh my God, I need to get in her coaching program. I joined that, which is called Focused. And it has been so incredible. Like coaching and therapy work very complementary to each other. They do not replace one another. They're very complementary in that you still need to go to therapy and you still need to process a lot of stuff. But coaching is kind of more for the day-to-day stuff, the active practicing of all the skills that you're kind of like digesting in therapy. Listening to somebody who is an expert, not only in ADHD, but also has her own experience of trauma and diagnosed with ADHD herself. Like she knows what she's talking about because she has lived the same life as all of us. So being able to listen to somebody who is an expert in all of these things, model the behavior and the self-talk and the critical thinking and just like all of these behavioral patterns has made such a huge difference. Like I really did not expect to be, I'm still in the program a year and a half later. I thought at the time, I was like, I'll give this a shot for a couple of months. And a year and a half later, I'm like, this has been one of the key pieces of my treatment of just like being exposed to, even without being coached myself. I've only been coached once, volunteering to raise my hand. So most of the time I'm listening to other people being coached. And that's the beauty of a group space, and that you can listen to other people's experiences and stories, because more often than not, you're going to be able to pull something out of their story that applies to you, whether it's the same exact experience or something similar, or you maybe feel something similar in a totally different situation. I have learned a lot just from listening to other people's life experiences and them being coached, and then taking the stuff and kind of like practicing on myself and listening to her speak in my mind. The other thing that has really made a huge difference is utilizing AI. And this carries a lot of stigma in today's day and age, but I will die on the hill that this has been game changing for me. It has been as effective in my treatment this year as medication itself. Like, to be able to use AI as a second brain, as like I can literally outsource my executive function, like everything in my prefrontal cortex that is like way below baseline, I can just hand it off to a computer and be like, organize all this list for me and tell me what I need to do first, and like come up with a plan for me in a step-by-step way that like I can implement today. To be able to outsource all of that just solves so many problems in my day-to-day functioning, to be able to get started on things and to know what I need to do next, and to have a tool I can like debrief stuff that I'm really struggling with. Like for a while, last year, it was getting started editing really overwhelming galleries. Like I went and chatted with it for a little bit. I was like, I need to find some kind of system or structure to be able to initiate this task of editing that feels Herculean. Like where can we kind of cut in on this that like gets my toe in a door? So being able to talk to AI and have those conversations to help me be able to function better has been game changing.
Clearly, it's just, yeah, it's given you so many lessons about yourself and about, unique ways that you can approach, entrepreneur life, right? I feel like, we constantly are, watching what everybody else is doing, and there's comparison game just never ends, right? And so to be able to find things that, that work for you, but also I'm just grateful to have you on, because I feel like any one thing that helps one or two other people means that like this conversation was worth it to me.
Yeah.
So no, I just so appreciate having you on and kind of like being able to, be open about the changes that it's made in your life.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy to share it for the same reason you just said. This is actually, believe it or not, the first time I am publicly talking about all of this. You are privy to it because we're friends and we exist in the same like
Circles.
Facebook groups, the same small communities. But this is actually the first time I am publicly talking about my diagnoses and what my experience has been like. But I agree in that, like, I am a great case study for someone, just like how I was saying with the photography piece of me in high school. Like, I didn't I didn't see it. So I didn't know that I could do it or be it. I know that even just showing up today and having this conversation offers an example to somebody who might be listening or watching and not see themselves in these experiences until they look at me and be like, oh, she has ADHD and depression. Like she looks like she's got her life together. I don't actually. Sorry to break the. I don't.
Do any of us? Do any of us really?
I know. I'm convinced we don't. Margaret Atwood said it best, and she's like, "Everyone, like, I'm just pretending. Everyone else is being a grown up. I'm just pretending, and no one has caught me." I'm like, yeah, she's anyway. Um, but but yes, if one or two people can take anything away from this, and I think even without the tactical stuff that we've talked about, even just to be able to witness me and my life experience, and to be able to see like, oh, this is not what I thought ADHD and depression looked like. And if it exists, if that's a thing for her, then maybe it is a thing for me too. That I find value in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all about representation, right? Like we talk about all the time with other spaces, but even this, like seeing it, you can do it, you can believe it, you can understand that it's you, you're not alone. Like it makes you remind yourself that, hey, I'm not alone, I'm not the only one. With kind of all of that, do you have any tips for anyone else who is either an entrepreneur and dealing with these same issues, or just kind of anyone that maybe is curious about like, hey, I'm struggling with something, maybe it's not ADHD or depression, but what should they do, or any tips for them to do that inner work to try to find those answers?
Finding the answers and living with them are very different things. In terms of finding the answers, if there's anything in this conversation that the listener, you, hi, I'm talking to you, that you're picking up, you're like, oh, this could be something. I encourage you to listen to that intuition, because often our intuition is right about a lot of things before we realize it. So, in terms of finding the answers, if anything pings on your radar, I encourage you to listen to that and seek out resources where they are. That might be free articles on the internet, books at the library you can go check out. I could rattle off a bunch of books that I have loved and have been really valuable for me. But those are easy ways to get started in finding the answers. In terms of living with the answers and kind of like functioning better, I would say to focus on meeting yourself where you're at. That has been a huge lesson for me, because before all of this mental health work, I thought that I needed to be doing the same thing every single day. And because everyone talks about consistency, everyone talks about how important it is to be consistent and to show up every single day. And I bought into that. I was like, that sounds reasonable. Like, okay, let's go. But the thing about neurodivergence is that by definition, it is not consistent. And it is so counterproductive, as I unwittingly discovered, to try and force yourself to show up the same every single day, because our energy levels are not going to be physical, mental, emotional. They are not going to be the same at the same point on any given day. So being able to meet yourself where you're at on any given day is really critical, and recognizing if you need space to take a break and go for like a walk, or even just sitting in the sunlight. That is what I did for a lot in my really dark depression days. I just, like, my worst days, I made myself go and sit in the sun. I was like, this is the minimum I can do for myself to take care of myself. I'm going to forget everything else, and I'm going to go sit in the sun and look at the trees. This is my like very low barrier to entry version of touching grass. But just meeting about yourself where you're at and being nice to yourself. One thing that helped me in the early days, weeks, and months and years was coming up with a system of different tasks that fit into different energy tiers. I thought of myself on like my best days of like when I show up, I'm energized, I'm ready to go, I'm focused, I'm feeling good. Like I was like saying to myself, okay, on those days, what feels reasonable that I could work on those days? What feels reasonable to get done in a day with that? And then I did the same for medium energy days, where it's like, I'm still functioning, but I'm like not generating a huge amount of productive output. And then low energy days, where it's like, I am dragging myself to my desk and we're just doing the bare minimum. So I created a task. This is an actual like strategy that a lot of educators will teach. I found a lot of value in that, and just like meeting myself where I was at and thinking of different menus I could choose from depending on where I was on any given day. Other than that, I would encourage people to just take good care of yourself. Don't burn yourself out. Don't listen to hustle culture. Take a sabbatical from social media. I did that for 2.5 years. It was great. Here's your permission slip. You do not need to be on Instagram. I was still continuing to run a great business on without Instagram. Get off of social media, get out of the comparison loop, take care of yourself in all of the ways: food, sleep, nutrition. If you can't get out and move, which I did not have access to, because I was like, I know exercise is good for me, but I can't motivate to do it. Do a couple of walks around, like a loop around your house. Literally go step outside and take a couple of steps in the sun. Meeting yourself where you're at, taking care of yourself, and giving yourself understanding of like, this is actually really hard, whether it's ADHD, whether it's depression, whether it's some other mental health disorder, any degree of it. Just recognizing for yourself that like, oh yeah, this actually is really hard and I am doing the best that I can. And then the last thing I would say is celebrating your tiny wins frequently. Celebrating all the wins, not just the big things, even if it feels ridiculous. And I promise it will feel ridiculous to celebrate the tiny wins. I wish I could think of a specific example. Oh, I did a 15-minute treadmill run the other night. I was literally high-fiving myself in the garage.
That's great.
But yeah, celebrating your tiny wins. It feels stupid and ridiculous at first, but it is on a neural pathway level. It's really important just to be able to teach yourself that like you can actually do things and then reward yourself.
It's incredible. Like, I think there's so many good things, even if you're not dealing with mental health issues. I think those are great things that we should be doing every day.
Yes, just as a human.
And be considering. Yeah, just being a human. Because it's hard to be a human. And with everything in our political climate, and everything that's going on, like, we just need to give ourselves grace.
Life is hard. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Grace, giving yourself grace is like so huge.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I am just so happy that you are here with us, Meg. Thank you so much for being honest and open. Like, it's so special that you were willing to be so open and just so public about all of this. These are conversations that we need to be having because it is just like from the beginning, we've been talking. I think this theme is like representation matters, right?
Yeah.
We need people to see it. We need to be talking about it so that we all know that we're not alone, that it could be us, that there are solutions, there are ways about it, and that we can get rid of those false narratives that we're just not good enough, because that's not true.
Let's throw it in the trash can and just like throw a flaming torch on it.
Yes. Oh my
100%.
gosh. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for everyone who's listening. I think that we'll put the books that you suggest, and you have a nice list. We'll put those in the show notes, put more information about Meg if you want to connect with her, follow her on Instagram, book her if you're a couple looking for a photographer. And yeah, we just appreciate everyone being here. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to us while you're cleaning around the house or doing whatever. And we will all talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been awesome to chat with you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This is lovely.